The question of who is a Jew lies at the heart of Jewish identity, religion, and history. Traditional Rabbinic Judaism teaches that Jewish identity is inherited through the mother. If your mother is Jewish, then you are Jewish. This matrilineal principle, codified in Jewish law, halacha, defines membership in the Jewish people and the covenant with God. Converts who undergo a proper halakhic conversion also become fully Jewish. Rabbinic Judaism sees the Jewish people as an ethno-religious group descended from the ancient Israelites, chosen by God in a covenant that began with Abraham and continued through Moses and the giving of the Torah. The Bible states, "You shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." Exodus 19:6. This chosenness is both spiritual and communal, tied to law and tradition rather than biological race per se. But Jewish law does recognize descent as essential. Israeli historian Shlomo Sand challenges this entire framework in his 2008 book, The Invention of the Jewish People. Sand argues that the concept of a continuous Jewish ethnic nation descending from ancient Israel is a modern nationalist myth, created mainly in the 19th and 20th centuries. Sand writes, "The idea of a Jewish people that has remained ethnically intact since biblical times is a modern invention, emerging under European nationalism." He denies the traditional narrative of a mass Roman exile after the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE. No historical evidence exists of a mass exile of Jews from Judea. Most of the population remained and later converted to Christianity or assimilated. Instead, Sand claims many Jews in the diaspora are descendants of converts, including groups such as the Khazars, Berbers, and others who adopted Judaism over centuries. Sand also challenges the assumption that Jewish identity is tied to race or bloodline. According to him, modern Jews are largely a cultural and religious community formed by conversion and shared tradition, not by strict biological descent. What does this mean if your mother isn't actually Jewish? According to Rabbinic Judaism, Jewish identity is clear. Matrilineal descent or proper conversion is required. If your mother is not Jewish according to halakha, you are not considered Jewish, no matter what others believe. But Sand would question the entire notion of a pure, unbroken Jewish ancestry. He would say that actual Jewish descent is a problematic concept because the Jewish people, as commonly understood, were formed through historical processes involving many conversions and cultural shifts. The Jews became a people only when nationalism appeared in Europe as a way to organize political power. Some critics of Sand point to recent genetic studies showing that many Jewish communities share Middle Eastern ancestry. Sand and his supporters argue that genetics is complex and does not prove exclusive descent from ancient Israelites. Genetics may reflect shared origins, but also centuries of conversions and intermarriage. This controversy highlights how identity is not only biological, but also social, religious, and political. Conversion has a long history in Judaism. Some Jewish communities, like the Khazar kingdom's ruling class, may have converted en masse in medieval times. This challenges any simplistic ethnic definition of Jewishness. In his controversial works, he claims that the Jewish people, as a unified ancient nation, and the land of Israel, as an eternal homeland, are modern political inventions. In The Invention of the Land of Israel, Sand writes, "The land of Israel is not a historical, natural, or even biblical term, but a theological and political construct developed in modern times to serve Zionist ambitions." He argues that, in the Hebrew Bible, the land is usually called the land of Canaan, or simply the land, and rarely the land of Israel. The term land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael, became widely used only in late Second Temple texts and even more so in Rabbinic Judaism, not the Bible itself. Sand emphasizes that Jerusalem was not even part of the kingdom called Israel after the division of the monarchy. After Solomon's death, the kingdom split into Israel, north, and Judah, south. Jerusalem belonged to Judah, not to Israel. Ironically, what today is claimed as the heart of Israel was never in Israel for most of biblical history. He argues that the modern use of the Bible to justify the modern state of Israel is a political rebranding of ancient texts. Sand also rejects the idea that Jews today are the direct biological descendants of the Israelites of the Bible. In The Invention of the Jewish People, he writes, "Most Jews today are not descended from the ancient Hebrews. The Jewish people was not exiled en masse by the Romans. That's a myth. Many Jewish communities formed by conversion. Khazars in the north, Berbers in North Africa, and others. This, he claims, undermines the ethnic justification for exclusive ownership of the land. So, what is Israel today? According to Sand, modern Israel is a nation-state like any other, created by human politics and power, not by divine promise. Sand is deeply critical of using biblical narratives as land deeds, especially when those narratives are used to justify the expulsion or subjugation of Palestinians. A secular, democratic state must be based on equality, not on ancient tribal claims.
Culturally, as a historian, I know that a secular Judaism doesn't exist. There is question if a Jewish sensibility exists, and what is the meaning of a Jewish sensibility that exists. But one thing I'm sure, if there is an Israeli culture, language, food, music, etc., you cannot find a Jewish secular culture that, the Jewish has in the world. Not food, not music. People mix between Yiddish culture, and it was a very, very important culture in the past. It was destroyed by a lot of forces, Nazism, Bolshevism, Zionism, etc. But it was, in East Europe, a very, very important Yiddish culture, an Yiddish identity, in Yiddish political parties, etc., etc. But if there is an Israeli culture, if there is a Yiddish culture, I don't understand what is a secular Jewish culture. But all this is not a reason to write a book about it, no? The second, every important thing has a lot of reasons. You start to understand history by understanding it before. There is other reasons that I felt very badly to define myself as a Jew. You see, I'm living in the Israeli state. I'm living in Tel Aviv most of my life. After the displacement camp, I was living in Tel Aviv. Now, Israel defines itself as a Jewish state. Agree with me, yeah? Not only Bibi Netanyahu, not only Avigdor Lieberman, also the Labour Party, in Israel, insist. And not only the Labour Party, even Meretz, it's another political left party, define Israel as a Jewish state. Now, I'm living in a state, a Jewish state, that a quarter of the population are not defined as Jews by the Minister of Interior. You know it. 20% of Arab Israelis. I'm not speaking about the occupied territories. I'm speaking about citizens in the state of Israel. And 5% of descendants of immigrants from East Europe that were not with Jewish mothers. Together, 25% of the population in Israel, without occupied territories, are not considered as Jews. How come that Israel defines itself as a Jewish state? In most of the Jews in the world accept it. In most of the establishment communities in the world, Jewish one, not only accept it, are very, very happy with it. Imagine tomorrow that Britain decides to define itself as an English state, or Christian English state. It's much better. How long it will exist, your kingdom? Big Britain, Great Britain. How long? If it's defined itself not a state, a kingdom of all the British, but only of the English one. how the Scot will feel, how the Welsh will feel, how the children of immigrants that they become British citizens will feel. They will feel like Arab Israelis are feeling in Israel. I mean, they are living, working, dying in a state that considers itself the state of Woody Allen and not of them. Why? I'm sure that there are people here, even on the stage, that consider themselves as Jews. If you want or you won't want, it's your state. Yes, it's your state, Professor Feldman. It's not the state of my pupils, Palestinian-Israeli pupils, and I have Palestinian-Israeli pupils in Tel Aviv University. Then I ask you, seriously, defining myself as Jew, continue to be a Jew in Israel today, it's immoral. Because a Jew in the state of Israel is a privileged citizen. True or not true? Somebody contest it? And I don't speak of the occupied territories. 47 years, a population without any political civic rights. Not 47 days, not 47 weeks, not 47 months, 47 years. In the Western world, thinking we need a peace process. And the Labour members party in Israel asked the members of the Labour Party in Britain not to vote to recognize a Palestinian state. Wait to the peace process. 47 years. They hope that it will be again 47 years. No, but a few years ago when I started to work about the history of the Jewish, I was sure that the territorial problem will finish very quickly. Rationality, because I tried to be a rational person, I understood that, Israel will decide very quickly to stop the occupation because she wants to stay a Jewish state. I make a mistake, by the way. If you want, I will develop it later because I promise to speak only maximum 30 minutes. Then I will continue to speak about Jewish identity and not about the political problem of Israel today, okay? Going back, I decided to write this book declaring that I'm not a Jew because I'm ashamed to be a Jew in Israel, first of all. Because I am a privileged citizen, as I said before. And if Britain will declare that it's an English state, the Englishmen that will insist that they are English will not be moral in my point of view. I compare it also with other states. You see, if Spain will declare tomorrow that is not a state of all the Spanish, but only of the Castilians, the Catalan will not take it, very nicely. In the Basque, in the Andalusian also. But Israel is a state, or a communitary state, you understand? Not a republic. Not a state of its citizens. It's not looking the good of its citizens that are paying the taxes. It's looking of the good of the Jewish in London, hoping that one day they will arrive. This is another reason that I wrote this book. I can continue with all other reasons, thinking that all my life, when I defined myself as a Jew, it was firstly because anti-Semitism. I remember repeating as a leftist militant always that I am a Jew till the last anti-Semitic person will live with us in this planet. And I repeat it for a long of years, and I become old with this idea. And then I decide it's not enough to define something in this way. Because if I would define myself as a Jew because of anti-Semitism, in some way, I will give them a kind of victory. If I define myself as a Jew because of the past, because of the memory, in some way the Nazis won. Why? Because they consider the Jews as an essentialist figure in history, an essentialist identity. Essentialist, I'm saying Jewishness for the Nazis, like for the anti-Semitic racist, is essentialist identity, okay? Then if I consider myself as a Jew, secular Jew, there is some essentialism in my definition. And I don't feel very comfortable about it. And I don't like that the Nazis won. They lost the battle and they won from the point of view of ideologically. People ask me, no, a Jew, stay a Jew forever. Then it's a victory of anti-Semitism. And now I decided that I don't want that the anti-Semitism will win. It's finished. And I decided that I am not a Jew. What was the reaction about it? Terrible. People are feeling, how come? But a day before yesterday, I took the plane from Tel Aviv to London. And I started to speak with a young woman about our travel to London. She said she's going to meet a guy that she knows, that she's engaged. I say, whoa, fantastic, fantastic. You quote an Englishman. She say, yes, yes, but he's a Jew. Then I say, oh, I don't care. Why you don't care? Oh, if he was from Christian origins, it's the same thing. It's nice that you quote an Englishman. I asked her if he's blonde because she was with very dark hairs. I asked her from where you come, and she said from Tashkent, 20 years in Israel, Haifa. Tashkent. The look was a real Tatarian, by the way. I mean, a very nice woman, very lovely woman, but with, you know, what is Tatarian, you know, a little Mongol. Me too, have a little bit of it. Anyway, she's 20 years in Israel. And then I say, oh, it's fantastic. I was happy for her. And she say, he's a Jew. I say, I don't care if he's a Jew or not a Jew. He's a good man, yes. But you have to understand it's important that he is a Jew. I ask, why? You are not religious. By the way, all around us, it was Hasidic people. And she was with jeans like this, very sexy. And I asked her, why it's so important for her that he's a Jew? Because of the blood, she said. Because of the blood. Which blood? Jewish blood. Okay. She is not a scientific person. She is not an intellectual. But I'm working in Tel Aviv University where you can find departments that people, professors, scientific people are looking for the Jewish DNA. Do you know it? After publishing the first book, I was attacked. I remember an article about me in the New York Times, a very nice article. And in the end of the article, Patricia Cohen, by the way, I don't know, a journalist, she was not aggressive against me, but in the end, she called geneticians in New York, and they say, no, Shlomo Sand is not right because there is a DNA, a Jewish DNA. It's not a joke. The problem is with the Jewish identity today, secular Jewish identity, that it's too weak to be a real identity. How a secular Jew can define himself? By blood, like this young woman, no? There is a common DNA for the Jewish in the world or not? Look on the Jews, huh? The anti-Semitic were right saying that it is a kind of people race. It's not a joke. In my university, people are looking, without a lot of success, for Jewish DNA because it's so difficult to define a secular Jew. What is the other way to define a secular Jew? It's by the Shoah, no? You cannot stop to be a Jew because of the Shoah. I heard it a lot of times. Then defining somebody only around a memory, in a memory of a tragedy, can become very perversive. Perversive? Perverse. To define somebody's identity only after a memory of a tragedy can be very perverse. And this is one of the acts of Jewish secular identity in our world in the beginning of the 21st century. True or not true? Why it can be perversive? Because look on the education today in Israel. People are Jew because of the Shoah. The third way to define yourself as a Jew is to identify with Israel. It's one of the means to define yourself as a Jew. In the Israeli policy, the last 50 years are playing with this a lot. To be a Jew is to identify with Israel, to identify with the Jewish state. You will say, but it's not rational. You can become to be a Jew and anti-Zionist. But in the end of the story, who won in this identical politics today? How Israel forced people that define themselves as Jew and feel very, very difficult to define themselves as Jew? What Israel imposed on them? You have to identify with the Jewish state. In Israel is gaining a lot with this policy. Then I decided that I don't belong to the same identity of Avigdor Lieberman. He wants me to stay a Jew. Bibi Netanyahu wants me to live in the Jewish state. I decided to resign. And I don't care what people will think about me. I don't want to make the Israeli Arabs Israelis, pure Israelis. I want that they will keep, besides their culture, and have also my culture. I think in the end of the book, I'm saying that every Arab Israeli child has to learn very, very carefully Hebrew. But every Jew Israeli has to learn Arabic. Not only because he's living in a state with so many Arabs, also because he's living in the Middle East. Then sorry to interpret me badly. Now, what is the difference between Great Britain and Little Israel? Britain is not saying to the Scot, it's not your kingdom. And you know, from sensibility, from identical politics, is very important to be a little bit hypocrite. Israel is not hypocrite. She said to the Arabs, it's not your state. Try do it in London, saying to the Scot, it's not your state. It's not the same thing. But I don't want to speak a lot about it. I will give one example. Yes, I know what is English hegemony in the United Kingdom. I have not illusions. But it's not the same thing as the Israeli Jewish hegemony in Israel. Then I am not a Jacobin. Sorry. For give you one example. Tell me, an Englishman from Christian origin can marry a nice girl from Jewish origin or not? Yes, but in Israel, no. And who fixed the laws that a Jew cannot marry a non-Jew in Israel? Religious people? Not at all. Before the establishment of the state in 48, in 47, Ben-Gurion, the founder of the state, sign that in Israel it will not be civic marriages. In that time, the religious Orthodox were very, very weak. It wasn't a problem, electoral problem. It was because Ben-Gurion was afraid, very afraid, the Jews will become mixed with non-Jews, like in England, like in the United States, like in France. Stop the marriages. Save the Jewish people not let people married with non-Jew. It's the only people in the world that you can save it if the person will not marry non-Jews. True or not true? Think about identity. If a Jewish person falls in love with the non-Jews, what will happen with the Jewish sensibility, with the Jewish identity, with the pluralistic identity? It will disappear in 1, 2, 3 generations. Sorry? Now you blame me in some way, a very nice way, but you blame me that a lot of argument is the argument of the anti-Semitic of the 19th century. Not at all, because I'm not a Jacobin. I'm not against Jewish identity, in one condition. The Jewishness will be the point of departure, not the point of arrival. First of all, because it's empty. Secondly, because I'm a universalist. Yes, you cannot divorce an ex-wife, but you can forget it. Now, yeah, by the way, I put a lot of episode, jokes, anecdote in my book. It's much better than 2 others' books. But what is important in this book? You see, in the book that I wrote about the invention of the land of Israel, I was very careful not to identify Jewishness with Zionism. Because for me, historically, Zionism is a kind of denial of Judaism. It's clear in the second book about the land of Israel. As you know, Judaism, all the establishment, religious establishment of Judaism till the Second World War were in majority against Zionism. For a Jew, the land, the Holy Land, wasn't his land. It was the land of God. God gave, God took, and when the Messiah will come, he will give back maybe. Then a Jew couldn't feel that he is the property of the land of the Holy Land. I insist in the book that Jewishness is not Zionism. Jewishness is not nationalism. But it doesn't mean that I like very much the Jewish religion. Anyway, I am against all monotheism, even the Muslimic. But it's very important to understand that Zionism picked up a lot of things from the Jewish tradition. Zionism in Israel is not a Jewish state. But they picked up, like always the nationalists is doing, what they like from the past. They constructed the past. Now, in this book, the first time, I insist that even that Zionism is not Judaism, it doesn't mean that Judaism is a very, very ethical religion. It's very important to understand it. For Judaism, a Jew cannot marry a non-Jew. Do you know it? I'm against it. I'm for love. I don't care if my daughter will marry a non-Jew. Maybe you, yes, not me.
If I had a daughter.
Or ex-daughter. Again. It's very important. You have to understand. Jewish ethics in my point of view, are not the ethics that I dream of. Why? Because in Jewishness, the ethics is intergroup. You say it in English, intergroup? It's not universalist ethics, you have to understand, much less than Muslims or Christianity. Why? Not only because of the Bible, because it was a minority that suffered from strong power around it, that developed an intergroup ethics. You cannot find rabbis that fought today in England, in France, for the suffering, against the suffering of the Palestinians. Orthodox rabbis, not. You can find Orthodox rabbis fighting against the Zionism, the Zionist state. Not because the solidarity of with the Palestinian, not at all. You understand me? There are a lot of Orthodox rabbis that are fighting against Zionism. But you don't have, in the Jewish ethics, you don't have a cosmopolitism ethics, universal ethics. The fact that so many Jews, and I insist in the book, in the 19th century and also in the 20th century, so many people from Jewish origin fought in all the battles for the human being, all the battles against suffering. It wasn't because of the Jewish ethics. They were humanists if they were far away from the Jewish religion, from Marx, passing Rosa Luxemburg till Deutscher, or Howard Zinn. But all this generation of people from Jewish origin, Jewish background, like me, by the way, fought for universal causes, not because they were Jews, because they left Jewishness. The people that stay with the Jewish religion didn't fight for causes, universal causes. Do you know it? And by the way, in the beginning of the 21st century, there are less and less people from Jewish origin that fought for universal causes. You notice it? Why? Because the reason that so many people from Jewish origin fought against injustice, against suffering, because they came from a suffering minority, a suffering long years minority that suffered from Christian civilization, much more than from the Muslims. You know, lately, in Paris, in London, in New York, people are speaking about the Judo-Christianity. You heard about it? Civilization. Judo-Christianity civilization. People like the term. In the first book I wrote that my aunt, didn't know when they pushed her to Auschwitz that one day Europe, the Western world, will define itself as a Judo-Christian civilization. It's nice, no? There is not a Jewish Christian civilization. There is a Christian civilization that oppressed the Jewishness much more than all other civilizations in history. This is the truth. And this minority became a very tough minority, believing that a chosen people, it was one of the conditions, sine qua non, to stay a Jew, to know that you are a chosen people. And it was all right for me. But today, to meet people that define themselves as Jews, knowing that Jews is chic, it's trendy today, huh? They're exceptional in the Western world. And also, deeply, it disgusts me, people that try to make profit of suffering capital of the past. Making symbolic capital of suffering of the past disgusts me profoundly. And this is one of the acts in Jewish identity in the Western world today. No? No? Not only Bibi Netanyahu is doing it. Not only Bibi Netanyahu insists that Israel has to have a nuclear weapon. and nobody else in the Middle East. Why? Why the Iran cannot have a weapon, nuclear weapon? Because it's a small state in face of the great state of Israel. I don't want that Iran will have a nuclear weapon. But all this discussion, international discussion, I ask myself, how come? How it's natural that Israel will have and get nuclear submarine from Germany lately, you know, and Iran cannot develop a nuclear weapon. How come? This is a Jewish identity. Besides a lot of other things. No, it's very important. I am not against Jewish identity. In one condition, that in this identity you didn't try to separate yourself from other people. Not to mix with other people. Not you to want that your descendant people will stay Jewish and not to live with others. Now, you spoke that the world is composed of identities. I have a little chapter in the book that identity is not a hat. Hat, yeah? You can have a lot of identities. I'm rich with identities. I will not expose all of them here. Yes, I'm an Israeli. I'm a professor of history. I'm a lot of other thoughts. And it's important. Everybody has a lot of identities. In history, two kinds of identities were exclusive identities. It was monotheism, and it was modern nationalism. You cannot be English and French at the same time. Till lately, you know, when the nationalism started to you know, you cannot be German and French at the same time. This is the essence of modern identity that we call nationalism. But there is other identities that can live with other identities. But you cannot be a Jew and a Muslim at the same time. It's true or not? You cannot be a Christian and a Muslim at the same time. I'm against this exclusive identity of any sort. And for the end, because I don't want to be too long, I'm very curious what you are thinking about all this problem. But one thing important, about empty identity. You see, as a historian, I know, I studied the Aryan identity. You will agree that the Aryan identity existed in the past. You agree with it or not? In the 30s, no? Oh, in the 30s, a lot of Germans believed that they are from Aryan race. It was an identity. Ah, you agree that it wasn't a real race, a real blood. But the identity existed. If people identify themselves as Aryan, the Aryan identity exists. I don't respect this identity. You know why? Not only because it was based on mythology, not only because this identity was exclusive identity that considered people in a essentialist way. But it existed. A lot of German, even Englishmen in that time, considered themselves as Aryan. I ask you, how we have to accept this kind of identity, exclusive identity? By the way, I don't think the Jewishness is the same thing like the Aryanism. Not at all. I don't compare. Because, first of all, from the ideological point of view, it's not the same. Even if in Judaism you have a base of racist thinking. But what's important that the Aryan identity, if you want, was the identity that not only with Jews, but with Slavs and all others, took them, all other identities, as inferior identities. You agree with it? The Jewish identity is very, very specific. But one thing you can compare. The Aryan identity was a weak identity. This is one of the reasons of the aggressivity of this identity. You understand me? It was empty. From cultural point of view, it was empty. There is not Aryan culture in history. They tried to build it a little bit with Wagner and others, but you cannot speak about Aryan culture. You can speak about German culture, about Yiddish culture, about Israeli culture, about English culture, even Scot culture, a little bit. But secular Jewish culture, no, it's identity, I agree. I'm not against Jewish identity. Everybody can identify himself as he wants. But let me identify myself as I want. The Jews, most of the Jews don't accept it. It's 3 days that I got letters after the publication in The Guardian of a lot of Jews that blame me to be a traitor. In my grandfather, I mentioned it at the beginning of the book. In the beginning of the 20th century, my grandfather sold everything that he had, didn't give a dime to the children, took the money and went to Jerusalem. He's buried in the Olive Mountain.
Mount of Olives, yeah.
The Mountain of Olives. The Mount of Olives. He's buried, I think, till today there. You know why? He didn't emigrate to Palestine to live there. He emigrated to Palestine to die. Why? Because after the Jewish tradition, the people that are buried, the Jews that are buried near Jerusalem, they will wake up in the redemption, the first one. In my grandfather was like, you know, the guys that try to cut you from the right.
He jumped the queue.
Yeah, you understand? You want to be from the first one that wake up. You have to understand. Next year in Jerusalem is not to emigrate to Jerusalem. It's the redemption. With all the death. With all the death. As you know, the Jews didn't accept the Messiah, Jesus Christ. This is the reason that they couldn't become Zionists. The idea of Zionism started not in Judaism. It's your fathers that invented Zionism. You, the British. By the way, it started in the Puritan Revolution in the 17th century. The first idea to send Jews to the Palestine because the redemption will start, the real redemption will start when the Jews will be sent to Palestine. We can find in the 17th century, in the Puritan Revolution, the idea that the Jews has to go there. From the 17th century till the 19th century, it started to develop here in London. In the middle of the 19th century, the father of the idea of Zionism wasn't Herzl at all. It was Lord Shaftesbury. You know, this slogan, a land without a people without a land, is not at all Jewish. It's British. I try to understand the place of the land of Israel and also the word, the concept. The land of Israel is not a biblical concept at all. It's a Talmudic religious concept. It's not a geopolitical concept at all. Only Zionism took this concept and built of it a notion of a homeland or national territory. Now, not to be too long, I will stress one thing. The notion of the land of Israel, the notion of the historical right of the Jews on the land. By the way, in my point of view, it's a crazy notion. After 2,000 years, to have a historical notion, right, it's unbelievable. You can imagine it? If we will try to fix the world after the historical rights of people on lands, we have to support the Serb when they try to destroyed the Kosovar. It's not 2,000 years. At 200 years, there were people with the Serb dialect that were living in Kosovo. Then if the Jews has a right on the land, why the Serbs don't have a right on Kosovo? Why the Arabs has not a right on Spanish of Spain? And we can continue till Manhattan. Why the Indians will have not a right to kick out all the white and black people in Manhattan? It's not 2,000 years. And maybe you will start to think about kicking out the Normans from here. There is, it's a crazy thing, the notion of historical right. And it is in the health of the Zionism, the historical right.
Shlomo, you said that the land of Israel was not delineated in the Bible. There's no mention of Israel in the Bible. I would point you to Ezekiel chapter 47, Ezekiel 40, verse 2, Samuel 13:19, and Chronicles 34:7. Israel is mentioned several times in the Bible. And
how many?
So is Judah. Now, I didn't interrupt you. Don't interrupt me, Shlomo.
Okay.
Excuse me, could people identify them?
Jonathan Hoffman.
Thank you.
The second point, Shlomo, you say Israel is not a biblical concept. Unfortunately, you've written yet another book which shows you're an academic fraud. You cherry-pick sources that you pretend proves your point. You even take them out of context when you suits you. The only people who believe you are those who've already made up their minds that Zionism is the root of all evil. You're a charlatan, Shlomo.
Thank you.
You can answer that. You can answer that, yeah.
I will answer very, very shortly. We are lucky today, because of the internet, to have search machine, how we say it in search machine?
Search engine.
Engine.
Search engine.
The Bible is online. You know it? Also the New Testament, don't be afraid. The Bible is online. Now, after this meeting, I advise you to go at home, to put the term land of Israel. By the way,
You've had your say, Mr. Hoffman. No, you're not.
Sorry that I interrupted you. You will continue all the evening because of it? Now, I repeat one thing. I ask you, 11 times in the Bible we have the concept of the land of Israel. Most of the places it's clear that this is the land of the kingdom of North, Israel kingdom, not Judah. Jerusalem is not a part of the land of Israel in the Bible. I insist. There is sentence that it's not clear, but there is others in the 11 sentence that mention the term land of Israel. It's clear that Jerusalem is not a part of the land of Israel. Because the land of Israel, because it wasn't a concept of land of Israel. Now, if 11 times you can find the land of Israel, you will find more than 50 times the term land of Canaan has a term of this place. Now you can find there 25 times, I think. Don't catch me with numbers, of the land of Judah, but not the land of Israel. Now, there is a discussion. It's a biblical term or not? Now, do you know the names of Joseph Flavius, the great historian, Jewish historian, that were living after the Bible? Do you know the book of the Maccabee?
Yeah.
By the way, in the Puritan Revolution, it was a very popular book because Cromwell saw himself a Judah, the Maccabee. Anyway, the book of Maccabee, Joseph Flavius, Philon from Alexandria, all the literature of what he called the Second Temple, there is not even one sentence that mentions the land of Israel. This concept didn't exist in all this literature. And I repeat, Joseph Flavius, the book of Maccabee, Philon d'Alexandria, all the things that we have after the Bible, The name of the land of Israel doesn't exist, my friend, my Jewish friend.
Exists 11 times in the Bible. You say it didn't exist at all.
We don't want to hear
No.
from Mr. Hoppert again.
I said it
You've had
doesn't
your say.
exist. One moment. It's very important to understand. It doesn't exist as the term that applied to this territory, to the promised land. You understand me? In the Talmud, they mention a lot of time the land of Israel is concept, a religious concept of the Mishnah and the Talmud. And by the way, the borders of the land of Israel in the Mishnah, in the Talmud, in the real Judaism, in my point of view, you know what is the borders of the land of Israel in the Mishnah and the Talmud? There is borders. It's from...
the Egypt River.
No, not at all. This is very interesting. It's from, I don't know the name, Accra, Eka, from Eka till Ashkelon. This is the land of Israel in the Talmud. You have to know it if you discuss about terms. Okay? What is the second thing? Yes, I'm a fraud. You see?
Well, I don't think we need to go into that.
It touched me a lot. But after, I'm quite sure that when you said it, you were a good lecturer of me. You read the book.
Shlomo, I don't think we should pursue that.
Thank you very much.
We shouldn't pursue that.
Then politically, I'm very moderate. I'm for two states, Israeli state and Palestinian state, confederated. Okay? I'm not from one state solution. You understand me? Now, writing the book, I was thinking that, people that don't agree with me politically, they can use it. But if somebody really read my book, read my conclusions, he knows very well that I am not against the existence of Israel today. We cannot go back in history. Even if Zionism, even the myth, nice thing, the myth, for me, become lies. Because, when the myth decomposes, it's become a lie. But it doesn't mean that you can go back. Now, but thinking like this, you cannot produce books. I think that I'm very careful in my conclusions, political conclusions. Try to read the second one, okay? But people interpret you. You see what people made with the Bible, okay? The people that wrote the books of the Bible, the people that wrote the books of the Bible, they didn't know that they will be used by the Zionists 4,000 years later or 3,000 years later. What is a secular Jew? It's a very important question, and this is my third book, The Invention of the Secular Jew. Who invented the secular Jew? The anti-Semitic, the racist, that consider the Jews that belong to an ethnic or to a race. And I try to show in the book that the Jews are not an ethnic and not a race. They are like everybody else here, a mix of a lot of origins, a lot of colors, a lot of cultures. The fact that today, in the beginning of the 21st century, so many people consider themselves a secular Jew and prefer to be a secular Jew much more than to be American or British. It's a very important phenomenon. My question is very simple. You see, I put forward the question. I can become a Christian if I want, converted to Christianity. It's possible or not? With a lot of chance, I can become a British citizen. Yes or no? With a lot of difficulties, but I can become. Even if my broken English, it's a problem, but I can become. I can become a member of the Labour Party or not? Even a conservative I can become. I can become Muslim. My question is very, very simple. How come that I can become a secular Jew if I'm not born with a Jewish mother? It's possible?
Yes, convert.
Ah, but I'm an atheist. My mother is not Jew. And I want to belong to this club, to join the club of secular Jews. What is the way to join the club? Yes, I know, in the Russian Empire, nobody wants to join the club. In Vichy, under Vichy, nobody wants to join the club. Before Auschwitz, nobody wants to join the club. But today, when we are in the side of the strong people, the Americans, first of all, the Europeans, what is the way to join the club, to become a secular Jew? There is a possibility. Now, this is a long discussion. It's not so simple what I put forward. It will be my next book. One thing I decided in the beginning of the 21st century. You see, I become more and more old like everybody here. And before approaching the exit, the sortie, I decided that I don't want to belong to exclusive clubs, only to inclusive clubs, that everybody can join the club. Why I decided? Because I came from a Jewish background, and I know very well the history of the Jews in the 20th century. I don't want to belong to your secular Jewish club because it's an exclusive club and not an inclusive club. And there are a lot of many that want to join the club today. Now, not only this, I am living in a state that defines itself as a Jewish state when 25 of the people there, the citizens, are not Jew. I cannot accept it. Especially that I'm privileged there. My Palestinian-Israeli student, Israeli citizens, has not the privilege that I have. Now, if you are from a Jewish origin, you can come tomorrow to Israel. In 3-4 days, become Israeli citizens, coming back to London, in feeling that this little land is your land, but it's not the land of my student, Palestinian student, Israeli citizens, not at all. I cannot accept to belong to your exclusive club. Sorry.
Leave Israel, go, get out. But he's an Israeli.
I'm Israeli.
Can I just say one thing?
I want to make Israel a state like Britain, a state of its citizens. All the citizens, not from the chosen, your chosen people. My concept of identity, my concept of nationality is not biological concept. I am attacking the genetics research about what is a Jew. You know, the difficult to define in Israel what is a Jew, a secular Jew, put a lot of people in the road to define Jews by genetics. You know, you heard about it. I was attacked by it. It's unbelievable, not in Britain. They were very, very careful not to mix genetics with culture. But in the United States, all the attacks in the United States say no. The Jews are a people, the Jews are a race people because the genetics, the DNA is common for the Jews. It's a bluff, it's not serious. It's only the Yeshiva University in New York. Now, I don't believe the Palestinians are the real Jews because Jews for me is a cultural concept, not a genetic. They are not Jews at all. They are Muslims, Christians, not Jews. You understand? Because for me, Jewishness is first of all, before everything, a very important religion in the Western world. They are not Jews. But the chance that a member of Hamas living in Hebron will be much more a direct descendant of the ancient Hebrew is 1,000 times more possible than me. Thank you. And today, more and more, I am convinced that if in the past, an anti-Semitic was a person that didn't like Jews, today an anti-Semitic is a person that the Jews don't like him. Thank you very much.